What happens when a man tries to become the father he never had? We're going to dig deep into this concept of the silent battles we face, the emotional scars we bear, and the untold resilience they both give us while raising our children, while we're trying to become the man we needed growing up. This is Barry with FatherSeekers, and this is the podcast Teach Me to Father. Hey guys, today we are on site in Lebanon, Missouri with my dear friend, my counselor, and one of my spiritual oversight people, Pastor Kelly Rhodes. And he is my dear brother in the Lord, and I am glad. I've been anticipating this. We are actually sitting on the stage at your church.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for being here.
And it's an honor to be here. I love what you're doing with FatherSeekers and just the resource and hope that I believe that you're bringing to, I think some of the most important men in the country. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this, Barry. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Tell us about your family, because in this community, your family has been pillars of the Christian foundational piece, part of that Christian foundational piece in this community here in Lebanon, Missouri.
Yeah, so my grandfather was the pastor of the Lebanon Church of the Nazarene for 51 years. It's the only church he ever pastored, and to stay in one place for that long was an amazing kind of a thing. He was really a revolutionary in a lot of ways. I can remember one of the stories that I've heard about him teaching was he would gather these young men to watch Muhammad Ali box. And so that was kind of way before its time, to do those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
And then just through building a relationship, he would win them to the Lord and then disciple them. And it's been a really amazing thing to see kind of the fruit of that grow. My father and his brother and sister, they have a Southern Gospel ministry that has been traveling for 56 or 57 years. It's been a long time, Barry, a long time. And so they've had tremendous influence over this region for quite some time. Then through a series of events, we launched Life Point Church 15 years ago this year. And so 2025 is kind of a big deal year for us. For me, this is the 30th year of my call into preaching. It's my 25th year of marriage. It's our
and today
is the
your
day. Yeah.
anniversary.
Today's the anniversary. Yeah,
thanks for taking time off for that.
We're thankful to be a part. But 15th anniversary of the church, 10th year that we have adopted my youngest, my daughter, and then my oldest got married this year. So 2025 was one of those big years for me and for our family.
So there was 50 plus years of ministry with your grandpa.
Right.
57 plus. Your dad, we had a Sunday meal with him, and he was telling me that, how old is he, 72, and he still travels. He was showing me his calendar. He showed me, he said, we've got 80-something places to go this year. And I thought, oh, I can't do 5. And you're 72, and you're still keen. And they take their group, they take their equipment. So
they have a tour bus.
So over 100 years of ministry, your grandmother, your grandfather, your mom, your dad, and now you and Bridget. How did you and Bridget meet?
Bridget and I met when we were at college. We both went to Mid-American Nazarene University. I was chasing a dream to play college football, and she was chasing a dream to become a pastor's wife. And I ended up being her. This is not one of those really great first experience stories. I ended up being her powder puff football coach, and
come on,
she was the most beautiful girl on campus by a long shot. And all the guys knew it, and she enjoyed a lot of that attention. And she was always talking about how she was talking to this guy or this guy or this guy, and it just didn't hit right with me. So I decided early on that I just didn't like her, that she was just one of those pretty flirty girls that I didn't want to waste my time with. And I can remember telling guys in the dorm, there is no way I will ever date Bridget Dye. And then, and then she asked me out one day on a double date with my roommate and her roommate. And now she'll tell you that she was not asking me out for her. She was asking me out for her roommate. But as we decided to plan this double date, it just grew and grew and grew until there was this huge group of people going to an improv comedy show in Kansas City. And we ended up spending a lot of time planning and coordinating all of that. And in the process of all of that, we just found out we really, really liked each other and had a lot of fun together. And I actually, that night, I knew. I knew. I was done. There was nobody else I wanted to talk to. And she didn't figure it out for a little bit longer than that. But I knew.
But you knew.
I knew. I mean, it's kind of crazy because that night there were like 3 couples that got together to end up getting married. That was their first date that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we started dating soon after that. And on our first date, I took her to Godspell at the Missouri Rep. And it was amazing. And we walked around the plaza at Kansas City. And I took her to this rose garden. I mean, I just laid out all the reasons why she shouldn't date me because I wanted her to know what she was getting into. And I was done. I mean, it was over for me at that point in time. And we started dating. We were out all night. Nothing funny happened. But whenever you stay out too late at a private Christian college in the late 90s, you get locked out.
Yeah.
So we talked all night long, and it was amazing. Just the courtship, the relationship, and the connection that God brought together in us. And 25 years later, here we go.
And you came back to Lebanon, got a ministry here. Fast forward to your counseling expertise and genius in that area, because not only myself, but I know lots of people who have had you as a counselor and your ministry in effect in this community as well. But talk about that, like your certifications, and because I think that's part of what makes you who you are. You have this great communication skill set, and you have this ability to see people as they are, but as not just a counselor, but as a shepherd.
So when we graduated from Mid-America, I went right into pastoring. I was a youth pastor at a church plant. And that was a great experience in a lot of ways. I learned a lot there. There are a lot of hard lessons that we learned there too. But went right into seminary because that's what you do. And I did well there. I enjoyed it there. I'm one of those guys that if I could be in school forever, I would. I just enjoy that environment a lot. But we actually went through 40 Days of Purpose with Rick Warren as a church. And during that time, I was fasting for God's direction. And God made it really clear to me that I was supposed to drop out of seminary and go pursue a master's degree in counseling and marriage and family therapy. And when I did that, it cost me some things. There were some scholarships, and some people were kind of disappointed that I'd made that decision to turn away from my seminary career. But it was the absolute best decision. When I got into Mid-America, it was like a duck in water. It just felt right. It felt normal. I loved it. It wasn't any kind of a discipline to study. I was just hungry for it, and I thrived in that environment. I was able to get an internship there at the counseling center at the university. Did most of my hours through them, and had just learned amazing lessons and had incredible mentors. Dr. Roy Rotz being chief among them. Actually, Roy ended up helping me greatly when we adopted my daughter, just to kind of know how to approach that whole situation. So to say that it was one of the most formative events of my life would not be any type of exaggeration. Then after that, we actually moved to Lebanon, not to start a church necessarily, but there was a school institute, the Forest Institute of Professional Psychology. They had a doctoral program. And because it was close to my family, that's where I went and started working at Forest. And it was a tremendous experience there. Didn't finish my degree there because life got real, and I couldn't afford to sponsor my family, take care of my family, and also do school. So I stepped out of that, worked for Mercy Health System, not as a counselor, but as a director of education for 3 years. One of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. Met some amazing people. They trained me in some pretty high-level business stuff that I had not had any exposure to before, and really gave me a lot of responsibility that I was able to really grow from. In the middle of all of that, we planted Life Point Church, and we've just been going ever since.
So with that story and all of the historical data that made you who you are and your experience and expertise and genius, I say you're a genius. You may not say you are, and I know other people that say you're a genius. Have you ever heard somebody, they ask you a really important question and they say, it's not for me, I'm asking for a friend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what, these are not for me.
Right.
These are for a friend. I'm asking for my fatherless buddies. So I want to talk about today. I think the way there's no way we can get all this information in, so it's going to have to be a carryover. However, today I want to talk about silent battles.
Okay.
Yeah. I picked the five most notable through research, the five most notable elements that fatherless guys carry when it comes to silent battles.
Okay.
Here's the first. The first is a deep-seated self-doubt and inadequacy. Fatherless fathers, I think that would be number one.
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of a two-liner definition on that? And then I have a question to follow up with.
There's a lot of things I want to say on that.
But do it. No, go ahead. If we just might have to extend this because I know we're in deep water here.
Yeah.
And some of the coaching I do, and we've had actually other conversations about this. So let's just see where this road takes us.
The father has a deep-seated inadequacy because they feel and they've carried the weight and the pain of not having that example their whole life. And they come into their experience of fatherhood, of being a father, with this overwhelming sense of what they didn't have. But what they don't often know is that that's not necessarily a bad thing. Let me explain what I mean by that. My son's a kicker. He's a pretty good high school football kicker. We're praying that God opens the door for him to go kick in college. But he started not by playing football. He started by playing soccer, which a lot of people would think, well, hey, that's a great advantage. But every coach that we have spent money on and hired, professionals that know what they're doing, will tell you that if you go into kicking a oblong football versus a round soccer ball, and you have the experience of being a soccer player, you are going to kick that thing wrong. You're going to be able to kick the ball because that's what you normally do, but you will have brought with you bad habits from another sport that serve no purpose here.
It's really good.
And one of the things I'd like to say to fatherless fathers is that there's an advantage because you don't have to replicate the mistakes.
That's amazing.
And that's a pretty powerful thing to think about. You know, you can learn from other people's mistakes, but you don't have to carry the scar that was left behind by someone else's. And so you really get to start with a clean slate, which is a beautiful thing. And so I understand that inadequacy, but it might be an advantage.
So you're saying we don't have to unlearn a bunch of stuff.
Right.
We just have a void that needs to be filled with the proper information, experience, coaching, and mentorship.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a loaded question.
Got it.
Address what we do when our feelings of inadequacy are triggered by our lack of experience and knowledge. How do we deal with that?
You know, what we do often is we pout, we recluse, we quit.
Come on.
Those things just aren't healthy. I don't think that the answer is any of those things. It may be to put things on pause for a time to retreat so I can say, okay, what do I need to know that I haven't learned yet? And so I think one of the most important things that you can do in dealing with those inadequacies is find somebody who has the qualities and characteristics of a father that you want to emulate for your children and build a relationship with them so you can learn. I don't think by any means, I'll tell you right now, the spiritual fathers in my life have been absolutely indispensable. I have a good dad. I'm thankful for my relationship with my dad. But the relationship that I have with Bishop Dwayne Deskins, Bishop Tony Miller, these men have been powerfully formative in my life.
Yes.
And knowing that I can go to them in those times when I don't know what to do, those times when I absolutely am deeply connected with my inadequacy, gives me a confidence in the situation that I don't have to continue in retreat. I don't have to quit. I can pause, learn, and try again. The idea that we're going to do fatherhood without failure is inadequate. We're going to fail. Failure is the mode of learning.
Okay. So Maxwell says he and Simon Sinek and a couple of Dan Martell and a couple of those other guys are my favorite guys on leadership, especially the old wise sage John Maxwell.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book just on that very topic of failing forward. Now, with that in mind, and I know that you are big into the spiritual fathering aspect and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And probably, if truth be known, we should do some work together on that. Like we both need something else to add to our schedule. However, your spiritual father, Dwayne Deskins, apostolic leader in your life and very influential. How does a guy that's triggered by inadequacies, who has no idea how to have a relationship with the Father, how does he even pursue a spiritual father? Supposing there are many spiritual fathers around to choose from, because there's not, and that's another podcast. But how does a guy who's inadequate at relationship and I can do it myself kind of guy, how does he pursue a spiritual father?
It's a great question, Barry. To kind of address that issue for another podcast briefly, what Scripture says, though you have 1,000 teachers, you have not many fathers.
Not many fathers.
And part of that is, I think that the teaching gifting is so readily accepted and needed, but also it's easy to identify. I think we have a struggle to identify a good father when we see one sometimes. And maybe that's because they're hard to find. But if you want a good spiritual father in your life, one of the first things I think is absolutely necessary is to start your life. And sounds cliche maybe, but it starts with a prayer life that says, God, I need someone. Help me have eyes to see and to identify who that person is. And then as you look through those eyes of faith, look for people who are actually fathering. And there's a difference between someone who's a great spiritual teacher and someone who's a spiritual father. In terms of baseball, there's a lot of guys out there that can tell you all the stats. How many people can teach you to swing? It's the person that takes time not to just spit information, but to show you how to get your feet set and where your elbow needs to be and how your wrists need to be together when you follow through. That's the kind of person that you want to look for. And a lot of times, I'm going to tell you, I think that there are more spiritual fathers available than we are willing to pursue because we're looking in the wrong places. We're looking for men on platforms that have a certain amount of notoriety, and we're not looking for the men who are sitting in the pew next to their wife, and they've been doing that for 30 years.
Quietly and consistently.
Yes.
In February, your spiritual father, Dwayne Deskins, and Charlie Sweet.
Yeah.
One of the most significant influencers in the body of Christ that he will not toot his own horn. He spoke to that very thing about, at least at our meetings when we had meals together, he spoke to the integrity of a quiet person, who probably the greatest spiritual fathers are the ones that nobody knows, that God hasn't revealed yet.
Yeah.
And
when you think about it, that is one of the marks you should look for. It's somebody who's not out there tooting their horn saying, "Hey, follow me." It's someone who's consistently putting in the work. They carry a confident humility about them. And the reason why they haven't come up and said, "Hey, I need to be your spiritual father," is because they carry a humility that says, I'm going to go where I'm invited. I'm going to do what I'm asked.
Fathers, if we use the original design, the OD, before all that exists was created, there were father and son. All right, so the father ideally is always in relationship with the son because the son desires relationship with the father. In other words, the son, if you look at the perfect son, Jesus, can't be a good father until you're first a good son.
Right.
If Jesus is the ultimate example of not only biblical manhood, but biblical sonship,
Right.
Jesus pursued his father, but his father was ever present and available.
Yes.
That's a whole nother podcast, availability versus position holding. I don't even want to go there, but I'm saying you need to exhort us on, you have to pursue a father figure. You have to pursue the Father in heaven first and get his guidance on who would be a good spiritual father, good spiritual coach, mentor in your life that he's not trying to notch his belt with.
Yeah. It is necessary. And I've written on this. I used to blog for pastors.com and a few other places, but I've written on this quite a bit, just the importance of humbling yourself enough to pursue that leader in your life. That you need their wisdom, you need their guidance, you need their experience, and you don't have it. That there's a reason why you long for it, because that sense of being incomplete, it is not necessarily always a bad thing.
Good.
Sometimes it points us to the thing that we don't have, that we need to have, and in that, pursuing that leader and just being humble enough to say, hey, I don't just want to know you. I want you to pour into my life. And then another huge piece of this is being willing to submit to what they have to say. They're not a spiritual father in your life if they can't correct you. And that's where a lot of us fail. That's where our insecurities really get us. It's not in the receiving of information. It's in the receiving correction. And
Say that again.
That's where we fail. It's not in receiving of information. It's in receiving of correction. A lot of us want all the information because we can keep what we like and get rid of what's left. But that correction piece says, hey, there's something that needs to be adjusted inside of you.
Ooh.
And in our insecurities, we don't want to hear that.
But that's what fathers do. And that's what we didn't have. So there's no groom. If you don't know, you don't know until you are exposed to it, and then you're responsible to deal with it. Like I say 100 times over, what happened to us through the acquiring of fatherlessness in our lives was not our fault. It is our responsibility to deal with and to work through in our lives. That's so good. Okay, here's another one. We will never get through if we don't. Okay, so the next element in the top five silent battles, difficulty. Ooh, this is right down your expertise alley. Difficulty expressing emotions and building intimacy.
Wow.
Here's the question.
Okay.
Not asking for me, asking for a friend. How comfortable am I sharing my true feelings with my children or partner? And what holds me back when I want to connect more deeply? Precursory question may overshadow that question.
Okay.
Forget that question. Let's go to the precursor. Why does my fatherlessness interrupt my relationship with my Heavenly Father?
Wow. I was working with a client here a few weeks ago talking about just this very thing. And he said, those old cowboy movies sure did a number on us. John Wayne did a number on us, didn't he? And it's this idea, that if we're going to be tough, if we're going to be manly men, that we need to shut off our emotions, which, truth be told, this is another podcast too. I think that idea that we need to shut off our emotions, pretend they don't exist, and that we can somehow have full unbridled control of them. Maybe that's why men are so adept at committing suicide. Maybe that affects us at such a greater degree for that reason, because we've never been told how we can make that connection. And I think it is absolutely one of those things where we struggle in our relationship with God, because God made our emotions good. They are a gift from him. You think about, like, if you didn't really enjoy emotions, you wouldn't enjoy when your team wins the Super Bowl. Like,
Come on.
there's an emotion going on there.
Come on.
You know, and when you look at the emotional spectrum, we need the highs and the lows. We don't need to be overcome and overwhelmed by either of them. God does give us the fruit of the spirit of self-control that helps us to be aware of, but not controlled by our emotions.
Ooh. That's yes. That's a lot. That's me. But I'm not asking for me. Here's the next question.
You got a good friend.
Yeah. He's got great questions. And I don't talk to myself. We had a long discussion about this last night at dinner. Third element of Secret Battles, identity and role confusion. Now, role confusion is not just cultural, vocational, mental, sexual. There's so many roles that men play.
Right.
However you want to go dive into that, I want to, instead of a question, I want to give you like a guiding light to get your expertise on. Fathers give their children their identity. Moms give them children their emotional health and how. Okay, you deal with it. Identity and role confusion. Fathers give us our identity. Go.
It's more than just our last name, right? You know, it's for me, it's more than just being a Rhodes. For me, more than just having that last name meant if I'm going to be one of us, one of the Rhodeses, it meant that I knew how to work hard and I knew how to persevere. My dad not only told me that, like through an actual conversation, he showed me that. He put it on display. You know, I got to see what that looked like. Not only did my dad do that, I got to see my grandfather do that. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. And to hear stories about how my great-grandfather, Kelly, pursued business and provided for his 16 children, you know, those are things that instilled in me a sense of this is what it means to be a Rhodes.
Yeah.
That identity aspect, a lot of that is caught, not taught necessarily. The problem with fatherlessness comes in and that we don't know what that looks like.
Come on.
Because we haven't had those discussions. In fact, this is one of the things, and I hope that, I know you're going to have female listeners.
Yeah.
No matter how bad you feel that child's father was, don't you dare tear him down in front of your child.
Good.
You will create a wound.
Yes. Come on, Pastor.
That is so much deeper than it needs to be. And it's the same thing if you're a father and the mother walked out. And let's be real, those wounds out there too.
Yeah.
No child needs to hear how horrible their biological parents are.
Right.
Because there will always be a component, but when they hear that, they internalize that and think, well, I must be bad too. We are raising, it's one of the great joys of our life, to raise our youngest. We adopted her out of foster care. And while we're honest with her about some things that led to this situation, because we don't want to hide the truth from her, we don't tear that family down, either one of mom or dad. We're truthful, but we tell her all the time, honey, they loved you.
Yeah.
They just couldn't overcome some things.
Yeah.
And
Let's go.
It's vital
gold.
Because number one, it's true. They did love her.
Gold.
But number two, she needs to know, that the reason why she's with us, this is part of God's plan. God loved you enough to send you to us. And sweetie, it's not that you needed us as much as we needed you. So she knows. And you could talk to her right now and you would get some sassiness in your answer.
Yeah.
But she would tell you those things.
She's a fireball.
We have those conversations, but it was not just a conversation. We show her that love in some powerful ways. The fatherless person, and maybe another podcast we do sometime is...
we've got like 100 so far right now.
But what about the child who had a father, but they were just absent? Like dad's name's on the deed,
right?
Just ain't never home,
right?
There's another type of wound that's created there. The dad that could be, but chooses not to be.
Right. That's good.
And it's it's similar to the wounded fathers, just in a lot of ways, but it may be a little bit different. I'm not saying it's worse.
That's a deep water piece right there. Just all that you just said, because having a visible father, a father figure, so that holds the position, but doesn't execute the office.
Yeah.
It's more painful. I had one guy tell me that I coach. He said, I have to die every day when I see him, because I've got this father hunger,
right,
that I need his input to fill. And if he does not, I'll find it in other ways. So that identity then is evaluated culturally and experimented with culturally by the whims and the desires of the flesh and the mind, and the twisting that the enemy does with that whole identity piece.
That's right.
Totally long subject. We're heirs of God through Christ. Right. So our identity is in and through Christ. We're made like him so that we can be adopted into the house of God, the family of God, and God is our Father. We are sons of God, not the Son of God, but we are sons and daughters of God. That, I want to do a podcast with you just on that.
That'd be awesome.
We got a list of 100 things right here, but the whole sonship thing, and sonship covers daughtership. There's not daughtership, it's sonship. It's both, all. We could sit here probably for days if we had some of your burnt ends and
there we go.
Fruit water. Here's the next element of the whole picture of silent battles. And I will tell you, this is one that I fought early on, especially going through the kidney thing. And by the way, the whole identity thing, it affects everything. That's out there. Here's the next one. Fear of repeating the cycle.
Yeah.
Fear of repeating the cycle. Here's this sort of overarching question. What am I most afraid of repeating from my childhood, and what steps can I take to consciously break that pattern with my children? The pattern I learned in childhood, speaking of me, affected my fathering skills with my kids. So I created a deficit in them because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that deficit and how to reconstruct it and fix it?
The challenge of this particular question, of this deficit, when you go into fatherhood without an identity of this is who I am, you may try to find that identity in what you do.
That's golden.
My accomplishment gives me a good firm sense in who I am, what I do, and so it's the most important thing I do. Rather than realizing these children that you've been entrusted with by God should come first. It's one of the reasons why men put their career before their family, because they get a greater sense of this is what it means to be something. Or it's especially, you'll notice there's a lot of fathers guys that fall into trouble. I think we know that statistics about incarceration and fatherlessness and addiction and fatherlessness, but there's a lot of fatherless guys that are amazingly successful, amazingly successful in business. However, they will often pass on that fatherlessness because they have put so much time in business or so much time in their career that they don't invest in the treasure that God has entrusted them with in their children. And so it's learning and following that order, and you learn this, if you come up in church, you learn this pretty early. It's got to be God first, my wife and my family second, and then my career. And those are simple things to say that you can put in a lot of extra time at home and not get that, raise at the end of the year. At least it doesn't feel like you get that raise. And the reason why it doesn't feel like you get that raise is because you can't measure necessarily the benefit or the growth that you've had at home because there's not a monetary value attached to it. However, if you start looking at the character of your children, the growth and the wisdom of your kids, their accomplishment, their health as the ultimate measure that you're looking for, now the game's changed. because it's like, we had a situation with our daughter, and our daughter is amazing. We love her. But a few years ago, well, actually just a year ago, she was kind of in a rebellious pattern in her life. Now, we had invested, but she went through at the time when she had to kind of figure out who she was. Is this life going to be the life that she chooses? She made some tough choices in my mind about who she's going to spend a lot of her time with, and that ended up just taking us into some deep waters of faith. But now that she has ended that relationship and embraced the truth that she was raised under, my wife and I look back and we're like, wow, it was worth it. All that prayer was worth it. All those hard conversations was worth it. Taking those hard stands was worth it. We can see it now. And you know what? There is not a numeric value financially you could ever place on the change that I've seen in my daughter. There's just not. You know, if you'd say, hey, Kelly, I'll give you $10 million, versus no, because that $10 million would destroy me and my family. But I'll tell you what's not going to destroy me and my family is a strong young woman of faith who's coming into her own. That is only going to support me. That is only going to bring strength and health to my family and the next generation of my family. And so we've learned to see what is appropriate to measure, what is the actual evidence of success in life. And it's not what the world tells you. Read Ecclesiastes. This is all just a chasing after the wind.
Yep.
In the end, what matters. And that is true today just as much as it was then.
There's a lot. That's good. Last element of sacred battles: loneliness and lack of support. We talked about spiritual fathers, but let's take that to the next level, and that would be, I now admit that I have to have not only mentorship, coaching, mentorship, and then spiritual father. I admit that I need that. How do I humble myself through the lack of information, the lack of knowledge, the lack of reference points, and the lack of ability to pursue help? How do I humble myself to do that?
When you talk about pursuing help, there's so many avenues that you could look to there. It may be pursuing help by getting a counselor. It may be pursuing help by approaching your pastor or asking that potential spiritual father to join your life. But you don't realize how much help you could get just from building a genuine friendship.
That's good.
Bishop Tony Miller told me, he said, we hear a lot of people talking about, how you have not many fathers and all these advisors. He goes, but no one knows how much good it would do if you just had one good friend. If you want friends, be friendly.
Jump to really quick, because that's like, I heard a guy say the other day, I was on a Zoom call with like 70 or 80 pastors, and this guy just sort of pitched this out and it struck me. I never contemplated before, but we talk about spiritual fathers, but he initiated this new idea of, for me, it was new, not for him, of spiritual brothers, spiritual sons, spiritual fathers. Talk about finding a spiritual brother that could at least be the first step in you finding a spiritual father, because most good, strong spiritual brothers have a spiritual father.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think when it comes to that, one of the first things we have to do is figure out how to shut our competition off.
Ooh.
Because a lot of times when we live in that vein of competition, we're not looking for brothers. We're looking for competitors. And if you're going to have that, you're going to have an adversary. And so it sets things up. It sets things up in a negative tone from the beginning. Competition can be good and healthy. In fact, some of my best friends, we get together and we will compete at something. We'll have a good time doing it.
Yeah.
Who can catch the most fish in a day or whatever. But there's a place where that gets unhealthy fast. So we have to get to that place where I don't have to dominate everything so that, or if we don't, we're just going to be lonely. Everybody talks about wanting to be the alpha. There's one alpha.
There's only one.
And he's by himself.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about Jesus Christ, the alpha male, different story, because that's the right way. But when we talk about the layers of society, those guys are by themselves a lot, and they, honestly, this might be a little bit controversial. I think that alpha thing is really an insecurity showing through. I've always got to prove myself that I'm at the very top.
It certainly is.
And that's a dangerous and unhealthy way to be. And so we have to get to that place where we value other people for who they are, not what they do. And we need to pursue those types of relationships. And the way you do that is you just say, I see what good they bring. I see what good they do. I see what that looks like, and not look at them as, well, if I get connected to them, then maybe I can sign another business deal. Or if I get connected to them, then I'll be seen favorable in the eyes of these other people. We have to see them for who they are, not how they can advance us at the time.
So we're talking about a humbling of ourselves while you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about the road to Emmaus. Two guys walking along. What just happened? Where are we going? What are we going to do? And the resurrected Savior shows up and starts walking and explaining things, and they don't even recognize him.
Right.
So we have to at least begin the process to get outside of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And start.
Yeah.
We could have there's a lot here. This was good. This is really good. We've talked about emotional scars today and how to maybe get a grip on beginning to address silent battles that we have and the scars that those battles leave us. Go to the website, click on, there's free stuff, there's Father Fuel, link into that. We send you information each week. There's other things on the podcast in forms of resources that are absolutely one click away from you. There is no charge. This is Barry with FatherSeekers, and this is the podcast Teach Me to Father, and this is my friend and I, Kelly Rhodes, saying thanks for being here.